Hello everyone and welcome to Learn with AI YouTube channel, and many thanks to all those who are with me. My name is Claire and let's get started with our next module. In this module 4, I am going to talk about control structures in Python. So let's get started. In Python, control structures are used to control the flow of execution of a program. So there are 3 main types of control structures in Python. First is conditional statements, second is looping statements, and third is exception handling. In this module, I am going to discuss about conditional statements, and I will cover the looping statements in the next module. So, what are conditional statements? Imagine you're trying to decide what to wear today. If it's sunny outside, you'll wear your shorts and a t-shirt. But if it's raining, you'll wear your raincoat and boots. That's kind of like how an if-else statement works in Python. The if part is like asking a question. In our case, is it sunny outside? If the answer is yes, meaning the condition is true, then you'll wear your shorts and t-shirt. That's the code that comes after the if. But if the answer is no, meaning the condition is false, then you move on to the else part of the statement. That's like saying, okay, if it's not sunny outside, then it must be raining. So, I'll wear my raincoat and boots. The code that comes after the else is the code that gets executed if the condition in the if is false. So, to put it simply, an if-else statement is like making a decision based on a condition. If the condition is true, you do one thing. If it's false, you do another thing, just like deciding what to wear based on whether it's sunny or raining outside. So, in this module, we will practice many questions related to if-else statement. So, let's take an example. And please make sure to do this exercises side by side, as it will help you to understand better. So, suppose I want to check that whether a student is above 18 or not using an if-else statement. So we can start our program by assigning the value 5 to the variable age. Then we can use an if-else statement to check whether the value of age is greater than 18. We can do this by writing if age greater than 18. So note that I used a comparison operator which is greater than, then we have to use the colon for indentation, and in next line we can use print statement. Then we can write, you are above 18. So, this if statement will check if you are above 18. We can use else statement that is executed when the condition in the if statement is false. So, let's write else, and then again, colon. Then, in next line, we can type print statement that you are below 18. So, when we run this program, it will print the message that you are not above 18, because the value of age is 5, which is not greater than 18. So, the if statement evaluates to false. Since the condition in the if statement is false, the program executes the else block, which prints the message that you are not above 18. Okay, so now we are going to take input from the user. So as I told you in the previous module, we can use input function to take input from the user. So let's remove this, and then int input. Enter your age. And then we can run it. Let's type 19. And our output is, you are above 18, because the if statement evaluates to true. Since the condition in the if statement is true, the program will not execute the else block. Okay, so this time I am going to change this value to 18. So what will be the output? If you know the answer, then make sure to comment down below with timestamps. This will let me know whether you understand or not, so let's run it. So our output is, you are not above 18, because we already stated in if statement that the age should be greater than 18, but not equals to 18. So we can add equals to sign, so this will check if you are 18 or above. Then we can run again. So now it will give us that you are above 18. So this was a simple program, I hope you understand. Let's take another example. Suppose I want to check whether a number is odd or even. I am assuming that you know what is odd and even numbers. So, Odd numbers are integers that are not divisible by 2, while even numbers are integers that are divisible by 2. So let's make a prompt that will take a number from the user. So let's take a variable num, then int, then input, and then we can write enter a number. Next, we have to use an if statement to check whether the number is even or odd. We can do this by checking whether the number is divisible by 2. So let's write if num. And then we have to use the modulo operator to get the remainder of the division operation, and if the remainder is 0, we know the number is even. And then 2, so it will divide the number by 2 and take it as a remainder. Then we can use double equals to sign and then 0, so it will check whether the remainder is equal to 0 or not. So if the condition become true, then we can print a message in next line saying that the number is even. So let's write our variable num, and then comma. Then we can write is even. Make sure that this print function is a part of this if statement, so make sure to intend this print statement properly. So let's write the else part, and in the next line, print num is odd. So again, this if statement will check that the number is even, and then when the if become false, the else part will be execute. So let's run this program. Let's type 4. So it returns even, because when we divide 4 by 2, our remainder will be 0. So let's run again and then can type 3. So this is odd because this number is not divisible by 2. So this was a simple program. So now I am going to talk about elif keyword. So elif is a special word in Python that helps us make choices based on different conditions. So imagine you are at a store and you want to buy some item. The store has different types of items like chocolates, biscuit, and cold drinks. You can use if and elif to choose which type of item you want to buy. So here's how it works. You start with if and ask yourself, do I want a chocolate bar? If the answer is yes, you buy a chocolate bar and go home happy. But if the answer is no, you move on to elif and ask yourself, do I want a biscuit instead? If the answer is yes, you buy a biscuit and go home happy. If neither of these options work, you use else to buy a cold drink. Even if you didn't get what you originally wanted, you still have something to enjoy. In the same way, elif let us ask multiple questions and make choices based on the answers. It helps us to write programs that can do different things depending on the situation. So, let's take an example. Suppose I want to check whether a number is positive, negative, or 0. So, first of all, we will see the logic behind it. First is positive number. So a number which is greater than 0 is a positive number like 2, 3, and 4. And a negative number is less than 0 like -1 and -2. So let's start with the program. So first, we are taking a variable num, which will take the input from the user, so int input, and then enter a number. So this will prompt the user to enter a number and stores the input as an integer. Then we have to start with if, num greater than 0, and then in next line we can use print function like num is positive. So, this if statement checks if the value of num is greater than 0. If it is, then the program prints a message that says the number is positive. If the if statement is not true, then the program checks the elif statement. Like this, we have to write elif, then num equals to 0. As I already told you, it will check whether it is a true condition or not. Then in next line we can write num is 0. So this elif statement checks if the value of num is equal to 0. If it is, then the program prints a message that says the number is 0. If neither the if nor the elif statement is true, then we can write else statement. And then in next line we can write num is negative. Most common mistakes in these statements are caused by incorrect indentation, so please make sure to double check it. So, this statement does not have a condition, so it will always execute if the if and elif statements are not true. The else statement prints a message that says the number is negative. So let's run this program. So let's type 9. So this is a positive number as it is greater than 0. Let's type -10, so it is negative number. And last is 0. Please make sure to do this exercises side by side as it will help you to understand better. So now we're going to talk about nested if statements. Suppose we want to make a program which will ask the user for their age. If the user is 18 or older, the program will print a message saying you are old enough to vote. Then it will ask the user if they are registered to vote. If they are registered, the program will print a message saying that, great, you're all set to vote. If they are not registered, the program will print a message saying you need to register to vote before you can vote. So let's make a program. So first of all, we want to ask the user to enter their age, so let's make a prompt. Let's take a variable name age, then int, input. How old are you? Then we want to check whether the user is old enough to vote using an if statement. So let's write if age greater than equals to 18. Then in next line, let's write prints a message saying, you are old enough to vote. But if the user is not old enough to vote, then we write else part. And in next, we can print a message saying, sorry, you are not old enough to vote. So note that we already asked the user for their age, but we have to know whether they are registered or not. So after this if statement, the program asks the user if they are registered to vote, so user can only type yes or no. So let's take another variable named registered. So we want to take input from the user, so now we don't have to write int before the input because we want to take a string. So let's write input, then we can write in string saying, are you registered to vote? Yes or no. So in next line, we want to check if the user is registered or not. So let's write if registered equals to equals to, and in string we have to type yes. Then in next line we can print a message saying that, great, you're all set to vote. But if the user responds with anything other than yes, the program prints a message saying you need to register to vote before you can vote. So let's write else part. Then in next line we can print our message saying you need to register to vote before you can vote. So overall, this program checks if a user is old enough to vote and whether they are registered to vote. The nested if statement is used to check if the user is registered to vote only if they are old enough to vote. So let's run this program, and let's type 18. So now it is asking yes or no. So let's write yes. So we are good to go. Let's run it again, and write 16. So we are not old enough to vote. So last we can run it again. Type 19, then no. So this message is showing because our first if condition is true, but our nested if condition is false. So this message is showing for else part of nested if. I know it is a little complicated for beginners, but the more you practice, the more you will improve.